Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of Unformulated. Today I want to talk about or discuss the election and everything kind of connect to this idea of the spectacle and political theater. So basically I want to cover this because I want to cover it in a way that isn't getting talked about enough, I think, and especially in the way that I think this election and every election we seem to have is becoming increasingly more unique. And I kind of want to identify what that trend is. So in a way, because the election's coming up or the election, probably when I'm uploading this, it'll probably be the day of the election. I want to kind of provide analysis I'm not hearing a lot and that's not overly fixating on who you should vote for, who's going to win, but just the political landscape that we find ourselves in and potentially why and what this could mean and maybe how we should look at this going forward. Because the way I was thinking about it is we're doing research for this video that I want to do on Jubilee, and I was going to connect it to the political, so which is kind of what made me realize I should just do this video and do one on the election. But analyzing through the lens of the political and with Jubilee and how Jubilee's kind of cashed in on this political cycle. I'll get into what Jubilee is in a sec if you don't know, especially for the podcast listeners. But each election, if you look at 2016 to 2020 to now, you can see this ever increasing demonstration of how we've become more of a spectacle instead of actual political discussion and analysis and conversation. Everything has kind of turned into this performance. And why is that? Why has it become a performance? And that question. And to kind of give you a summary of what I want to talk about is with this election is its relationship with our increasingly online discourse and the kind of the intertwining with reality that is our internet spaces. And how, because same way that I kind of hate this idea, or I hate how often people talk about our movies have become overly political, our sports have become everything is political. But I think what people don't realize when they say that is what they're seeing is people have become overly performative in their politics, and there's something that just feels genuinely inauthentic because there is a genuine lack of engagement with the political space and the political ideology. It's become a political theater and not something that is at a societal structure, relational with other people and doing anything to kind of build as a kind of collective society. And I kind of want to use Jubilee as a backdrop, partly because they've been really cashing in on this kind of election, but they're honestly this perfect symbol of this political theater that I'm talking about. Plus I want to bring in some other connections based on what has been happening recently, particularly with say Joe Rogan and those type of internet spaces. But what do I kind of mean by all of this though is I think our digital spaces and the way we consume ideas and news and various forms of ideology has transformed into self-optimizing subjects. That's what we've become. And people who consume political and social issues as entertainment rather than, actively engaging with them on a genuine level. But then you might be wondering what is so wrong with this? Why is this so bad? Or is this actually uniquely different than we've seen historically? And I think the extreme of it is vastly different. We're in an uncharted territory, especially with the age of the internet and our digital spaces and how the algorithmic system has defined the discourse we have. So we've become so intertwined in our sense of self and how we view ourselves through our political position. So for example, if you've been consuming some of my writing and content, say on Substack, those listening on the podcast might be more connected to my Substack, you might say, but might know that I've discussed how much our identities have become kind of optimized and commodified products because we live under a structure that wishes to sell you your idea and the idea of you back to you, all while telling you that you haven't really reached the self you see yourself as. But then they say don't worry, there's a product, a course, a book, or an endless list of products that will help you achieve that end. So we perform. And the same has happened within our political spaces, I think. And that's what I want to talk about. Let's bring in Jubilee to really set the backdrop to how, or like the foundation of this spectacle that I want to talk about, and why it's important, and why we need to recognize what's happening if we ever want to perceive a different possible future than what is currently being felt. It's like, just take a look at some of these. You have one politician versus 25 undecided voters, which I actually listened to some of that one, and that one's probably the most civil out of these kind of surrounded videos they've been doing. The surrounded series is just ridiculous. Like, it's one Democrat versus 25 Trump supporters, and they have Destiny as the one Democrat. And if anyone listening in or watching is familiar with Destiny, he's like kind of like the debate lord of the Democrat. Actually, not even just fully Democrats, the center left, I guess you could say. But just my point is not picking a side one way or the other on these debates, but it's more so this is the entertainment aspect of this, making the political into this entertainment performative play. And we'll play some clips as well. I'll show you why I think some of this is ridiculous. And then you also have like the 60 Republicans and Democrats vote, and they have a discussion. You have even the non-political things like fit versus fat. I know Charlie Kirk was on here, the Turning Point guy. You just see the kind of pure entertainment aspect of this and how this channel is cashing in on this. And my reason for using Jubilee as the backdrop is I'm saying that other news outlets are doing the same thing. The more like legacy media is doing the same thing with how they handle their panels and discussions. It's very performative. We're waiting to expect the answers, and people just end up performing their various talking points to signal to their base. I kind of wanted to like really get at that idea, but to like really set this up, I want to play like a ridiculous clip to kind of demonstrate what I'm talking about.
I'm a MAGA gangster. I'm outside when it comes to Trump. Have you ever been to a rally?
Yeah,
that's number one. I don't know if you book smart or if you're really outside, because I'm outside. Yep. I'm outside. And you basically said MAGAs thrive off of lies. First of all, you ever seen a Trump rally? You don't see all of the unity and love out there?
Nope. I see things saying like deport all the immigrants, and I see more MAGA flags, and I see American
flags.
All
right, let me ask you this. You support Black Lives Matter?
Not that much.
But Black Lives Matter only when media put it out. That's number one. Trump is bringing a lot of unity and love. You support burning and looting. That's what you support. And it tripped me out how you could support someone that just want the world to just go crazy, burning and looting. And I heard you say something earlier that's crazy. You said you hate America. Talk about that.
I don't think I ever said I hate America.
Yes, you did. And
I hate America?
And it made me look at you even more.
When did I say I hate? In what context?
You said it earlier.
I don't think so. I think I said that I like America. I like America. I don't think MAGA people like America. I don't think you guys have any idea what it means to be American. I don't think you know what American values are. I don't think you know what this country was founded or built upon. And I think you guys are obsessed with a cult leader who is taking the entire Republican Party off of a cliff.
Everything he say he do. Trump is gangster. Remember.
Can you give me one thing you don't like about Trump?
What I don't like about him, I love everything about him.
I know, because it's a cult. Thank you.
It's not a cult.
I'm from cult.
No, it's not a cult. Everything is a cult if you want to think about it.
Okay.
Everything is a cult.
To somebody in a cult, that's probably true, yeah.
He's someone that's representing, and Kumala, whatever her name is, she out of here. Trump 2024. All right. Let's go.
I kind of picked that clip because it's just ridiculous. It's very performative. But I want to also preface this by saying that I think the left and right do this kind of team-based identity fanaticism. But I still think the analysis of people placing value judgments on the level of fanaticism to the level of, say, calling something a cult, and how each side demonstrates this in various ways and severity, just want to put that out there. I think that is a valid points to be made, because the MAGA gangster, for example, probably sees himself as on the team, and he views other people that ascribe themselves as being a Democrat, for example, or on the on the Kamala team. That he sees them as also just attributing themselves to a team, and then these teams clash. But then he also probably assuming the same thing, where like both teams don't actually know anything about either side or the policy, so they just like blindly trust. And both are just blindly trusting is the assumption of like, say, maybe this person that you just heard in the video. But my point is, people are doing this to various degrees, and also the deterioration where more people are passionately voting and have these passionate positions in ideological positions without having like a genuine understanding of why they hold that position. It has become overly performative in how we identify with our political positions. And I find that very problematic and scary, honestly. This is part of what I mean when I talk about, say, like performative identity by way of politics, you know? Because like for example, does the MAGA gangster know anything about policy or the positions of Trump? Probably not. And I think the same is true for a lot of Kamala supporters. But we still have to be able to take to the severity of degrees on each side and able to understanding of that, right? So in many ways, I think most voters will claim to care about various issues, but I'm starting to wonder how much is it about filtering their positions through some kind of identity, right? That the internet and our like consumer structures have fueled those ideas. So we become kind of like drawn into politics by way of like reinforcing our identities instead of challenging them. And this is what the algorithms provide. This is what's so scary about it, and why I think we've seen like this deterioration in political discourse over the last 2 decades. Because we've become attached to ideological labels, even though those ideological labels have in many ways become bastardized over the years and become like, there's no substance there anymore. It's pure aesthetic and performance. So we become attached to the ideological labels where self-identification takes precedence over understanding, you know, and the various like implications of various policies. So now we have a politics that is consumed like a product or like products. It has become a form of entertainment instead of genuine engagement to any degree, right? So then we become like encouraged to align with a label rather than say like wrestle with the deeper complexities behind these issues and why they matter and how they relate to people and how they relate to groups and how they relate to marginalized groups, how they relate to the working class. Everything has become about these 1, 2, or 3 surface level issues that everyone fixates on, right? And it becomes like a selling point for commercials, for ads, for debate topics. And if you want an example of what I'm talking about, go watch the debates in 2008 and 2012. Clips even. See how much the focus was at least attempting to be about policy compared to now. Because now it's some like rhetorical battle with statements and memeified calling cards basically to each side's base. It has become like this. It has become about rallying the voter base to perform their part in voting, and the spectacle does not wish for you to engage with that identity in depth, because then you become less of a predictable voter. Now it's they give you these spectacle issues to care about, DEI, things like that, like undocumented immigrants eating dogs. Lies and untruths that just are flashy headlines that get clicks, get advertising dollars, but does it lead you to becoming an engaged and an aware citizen of what is actually affecting you on the day-to-day? I'm not even gonna like go list through them, but like think about the issues you hear about the most, and then genuinely ask yourself, how much do those issues, how much are they going to affect my daily life and the people's life around me? And I promise you, what the national political stage is focused on, those things are not going to affect you that much. They want to distract you from doing anything, as long as it's not actually fixating on things that will say maybe challenge the political structure, challenge the economic structure, challenge the corporate structure, anything that moves away from that. But I want to also like give an example because now I also just feel like I'm being performative. Because I want to pinpoint this idea of how through this, we also want to believe we're not the ones being performative in this. No, we're the ones that are rationally thinking, understand why these things matter, understand why these issues are some like foundation for society, and we're not performing. We're like the great seer of truth, blah, blah, blah. So I'll try to connect this.
Seems like Trump can't drop a shit without you guys running to like, that's the new thing. So I just want to get a hand count really quick. This is not a flame or backhanded. I'm serious. I'm genuinely interested. Can you raise your hand for me if there's anything major, legislation or otherwise, that Trump has done over the last few years that you disagree with?
For the pod listeners, there was only like a few hands that go up.
I understand what you're saying. You're saying it's a cult-like mentality, correct? That he does anything, we follow along with it. 100%. There's people in this movement that do that. We call them grifters. I will criticize, if he wins, if he loses, either way, I'm criticizing these people no matter what. Obviously, I'm a pro-choice Republican. That ain't very popular, I'll tell you that. The only thing is, on the other side, I've made fun of this for a long time. I think it goes both ways. I think we can agree on that. But it was literally a meme where it was like, okay, Ukraine flag in bio, Palestine flag in bio, vaccines, masks, all these things. Like, you cannot admit that you guys are not equally, if not more insanely cult-like. They literally were like, Biden's done, Kamala is our president. It's like, it's a fucking meme for a fucking reason. Give me a fucking break.
Okay.
Yeah, nobody voted for her. We voted for Trump.
Real quick.
We took a bullet for this country.
I just really want to pinpoint because the Emily Wilson was that first chick that was talking and wanted to present herself as though she's not in the cult. She's not in the Republican cult. She's not in the Trump cult, and then also framing it as though, okay, the Democrats, you also have your cult-like beliefs and symbols. And I found it fascinating how they fixated on the symbols point, like almost like this performative symbols, like symbolizing your stance or something along those lines. This is all true. This is all happening across the board. And there's nothing like inherently wrong with that method. But what often happens is like people are recognizing that's happening. And then people that pinpoint and recognize that's happening, they often want to then frame themselves as though I see this is happening. I'm above this. I still do it. It's almost like done on some weird level of irony that's not like actually true irony when you think about it, because really they're just saying that to just seem more aware, but they're really not that aware about it. Like, for example, let's take this Emily Wilson chick, for example. This is the analysis, political analysis of this performative content creator or the Trump side that we can get insight into on what she actually believes and how internet brained and performative she has become.
So if everyone in a state wants something, go ahead and have it.
So if everyone in Alabama wanted slavery back, you'd be okay with that?
Sure. If everyone in the state wants it, go ahead. What do I give a
All right.
And that's a clip from one of the worst podcasts I've ever consumed. But this is the thing. How often do we see people frame themselves as not someone being consumed by their political identity, right? This is the point I want to focus on, because I don't want to like go and dunk on her for how insane that clip was, right? But my point is how everyone wants to position themselves as beyond their political identity, as we clearly are in a society and culture that is more consumed by political identity on the individual level, and then we consume people that are also consumed by their political identity, and we seem to not take that into account when considering their positions. Because someone like this Emily Wilson person, they will frame themselves as having common sense or the rational position, right? And then they say the most insane things, partly because they want those viral clips. They're performative, partly because they have zero idea what they're talking about, in her case, and partly to simply protect this hyper reality based identity that they feel compelled to protect as well. And it doesn't help that we get so much of our information from political creators that have a financial incentive to become the most predictable with their political analysis. Think about it. Think about all the biggest political creators, Ben Shapiro, someone like Charlie Kirk, even like Joe Rogan nowadays, Hassan Piker for the left. They have an incentive to become predictable because it's what their audience expects. I'm not saying this is wrong on equal degrees, but the point is you are consuming a character that is expected through a financial incentive brought to you by the algorithm, brought to you by our economic structure, that they want to provide a predictable analysis that makes you feel good, that makes you an easy data point to be collected, to be predictable. And it also is easier to market to you. The analysis becomes predictable. Ben Shapiro, was anti-Trump, right? And then Trump won, financials incentives change, and now he has to become pro-Trump, and now he rationalizes the most insane things, such as like January 6th, where he was completely against it, and now he has to like rationalize it as though it wasn't a big deal. There's clips of that as well. It's just these types of things because of the incentive structure is there, so the spectacle has to live on. The spectacle does live on, right? And this is my point, is that, think about this. Take the debates that Jubilee has been doing. I've been playing some of the clips from them. Their Surrounded series, their Middle Ground series, that no middle ground has ever found. And the Surrounded series is, like I said, is the one where they have the one Democrat versus, like 25 others of the opposing viewpoint. But what I'm trying to say is Jubilee is not unique. Like outlets, more like legacy media outlets, say like Piers Morgan show, has taken a similar turn as well. Turn of kind of having this political theater at play, to have the most surface level discussions where people do not really have discussions on the issues, instead wait for their moment, to express their favorite meme-worthy talking point. It's tense, it's chaotic, it's unserious, it's being performed by unserious people. This is the unfortunate reality. Like, the political creators have become so unserious because of the incentives of what type of political analysis is being created. It's hard to find that good political analysis. So these media influences end up defining us, defining how we view politics, defining the language of our anxiety, both on an individual and collective level. And at some level, many of us sense this. I know this. I'm not unique in recognizing this. I know that. I know there's like a disconnect people are feeling between lived experience and the marketed images of what political and social life should be. We have this kind of created dissonance and unease in our personal identity that's happening. So what environment then, and politically, does this then create? It's worrisome because like political engagement in many ways has become simply a consumer product. And this creates a social disillusionment within that, where I think we feel as though we should be invested in the political landscape and the system and the spectacle of that. It's yet everywhere we look, we see entertainment politics. So it becomes hard to engage meaningfully. The political spectacle has become something that does not wish to inform the votes. Instead, we find ourselves having our personal distress being turned into something to be consumed. Like think of even how, let's say, since I feel like I've been attacking the Trump and the right, on the left, let's say more radical leftist positions, or the more anti-Kamala leftists, they've all kind of united around one issue in expressing support for Palestine, and their decision not to vote for Kamala, largely it's been based around that particular issue. And then the content creator wheel around that, they all fall in line. I've even noticed it on some of the pages I follow, producing the same political memes, the same talking points on why they're doing this, and, making the same arguments about how both parties are the same, blah, 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 yada, yada. I even agree with some of those sentiments. But the reality is those same political operators and creators often are trying to frame themselves outside of the political theater, but they themselves are partaking in that political theater. Almost like this performance of the anti-establishment in this very predictable narrative. So what happens after the election? After your third-party vote has been cast, what happens next? Your candidate clearly loses. Do you go home and wait another 4 years and complain 4 years later about how the system hasn't changed, yada, yada? Are you participating at a local level, in your local communities, at your state political theater? Or are you waiting for the national stage to tell you what to do and being distracted by the national stage and proclaiming this is where we're going to empower ourselves through a rebellious vote through this? But anyway, I think that some of these Jubilee clips kind of show some of my points. Let's tap into these.
Hi.
Hi.
Jenny, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So you think that people that support Trump are in a cult. Why is that?
I feel like Donald Trump is basically untouchable. He can do no wrong. The entire conservative party is basically centered around Donald Trump. Any person that goes against Donald Trump, it can be so many people. Everybody still looks at all of those people around him as being the fault and never Donald Trump. When Donald Trump was in office, it was because of the swamp. When people like Barr turned against him, it was because he was a rhino. When people like McCarthy didn't, like carry his banner, it's because he's a rhino. People it's this labeling of every single person around this is a bad guy is, oh, those people are rhinos and Trump is great and Trump can do no wrong, basically.
I think that's false. I don't think Trump is a perfect human being. I think anybody out here that's voting for Trump knows that he is not innocent. No top businessman, no top politician got to the top without getting their hands dirty. I think what we're all voting for is based on his policies. I think he prioritizes the economy. I think he stands for women's rights, and that is something that's very, very important to me. Do you think that Trump likes women? Do you think he respects them at all?
Yeah, Trump loves women. I don't know if he respects them. When we say
Really?
that people
You don't
support,
think so?
No.
I want to pause this clip because the connection I want to try to make is, like I said, I'm not doing this video to go point by point on that and have my own version of a debate where they can't respond type of thing. But what I find interesting is how often it becomes a generalized statement about, oh, the economic policies are better. Oh, I actually think they care about women. And there is no substance to that, no structure of the belief system. It's all filtered through the identity of the political.
Why not?
I think the types of statements alone that he makes about women, I think, call that into question. But you said earlier that people support Trump because of his policies. I don't think that's true because I don't even know what policies of Trump that nobody even talks about them.
Oh, really? He posted on his Twitter, he posted that of 20 promises he's going to make to America. He's going to make trans women competing in women's sports illegal. I think that is something that needs to be said, that he does support women in that retrospect.
Are these things are these the most important issues to you?
I think so.
Okay.
I am a woman after all. At least I know I am.
You're competing in a lot of NCAA or whatever athletic events right now,
I attended San Jose State. I graduated from there. You do realize that there is a transgender person that's on that volleyball team and nobody on that team.
So this is the part of the distraction I kind of want to talk about too, where it's the question of, in your daily life, how much, if this is the number one issue you want to bring up, this is the number one thing, transgender women in sports, a national presidential election, this is your number one issue, this is what you pinpoint as why I'm voting. And then, even if it affects you individually, fine, I understand, I get it. But now, if we go more outward, how much is it affecting people around you? It's this distractive issue that can be easily turned into these kind of viral clip moments, these tense moments, these moralized moments. People can really activate their moral OCD around it. They get these passionate reactions. You can have your kind of bitey talking points with it. The marginalized group that's getting attacked doesn't really have that large of a voice. So then it just becomes this political theater where it gets people all emotionally involved, fixating further on other identity-based issues, which I find interesting based on what we talked about in this episode. But then when an actual conversation about a political project, and a political project that directly affect and change people's lives, for the better or for the worse, on a mass scale, mass awareness about your material conditions, those issues get cast aside for the spectacle of these emotionally fueled issues. And then you also have this happening with, say, Joe Rogan.
I'll say it again, man. I think this is the last election. If Trump doesn't win, this is the last election.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think people, and a lot of people are waking up and realize that have been lifelong Democrats. Guys like Bill Ackman, guys like Chamath.
Yeah, exactly.
Tulsi Gabbard switched over to the Republicans. Like, there's a lot of people who their whole life they've been left wing and they realize, like, I can't do this anymore.
You and I used to be Democrats.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
It's nuts, man. If the Dems win this election, they will legalize enough illegals to turn the swing states, and everywhere will be like California. There will be no escape.
That is so insane.
This is the final. This is it. This is the last chance.
Has anybody tried
and
to
I
push
just want to
back?
Go out and vote. Vote like your life depends on it. Vote like your future depends on it, because it does.
And this is what I mean. It's like both sides are doing this too, but I think that this clip by Joe and Elon here is actually insane. This apocalyptic end of the world scenario. For one, his point about, I could probably do a whole video on his point about A, illegals don't vote, can't vote. B, they don't all vote Democrat. You'd actually be surprised how often you'd actually be surprised how often immigrants and end up voting Republican. You know, they're individual people with individual lives, individual backgrounds that end up making their own decisions. It's not just like they're automatically a Democrat voter, for example. But this framing as though like the swing states are all going to turn all this. But the other point is what is the election if not an ultimate consumer product to everyone here? And all these clips I played, you're invited to consume identities, not platforms or policies. Jubilee packages political encounters as conflict-ridden episodes, not to elucidate really, but to entertain, right? Like I said, like I mentioned, their Surrounded or Middle Ground series. It's not there to foster understanding. They're there to cast ideological labels into meme-ready roles, sound bites, and clips, and then prop up content creators that want to be there to perform that role like actors on a stage. So this commodification of debate kind of plays directly into kind of the narcissistic impulse as well. Not a desire for like understanding, but for affirmation and above all performance. And like this is why I brought up Joe, is like Joe's kind of come full circle in his evolution of this grift. And you've noticed this right-wing grift. There's like a lot of money to be made on that right-wing grift. Full circle. So when you watch someone like say like the MAGA gangster that I mentioned earlier, or rational common sense thinkers, you're not really evaluating idea. You're gauging how these personas might reflect or reinforce our identities. Like I said, I don't escape this either. I fall into the same things I'm talking about. This is why I want to bring it up, because I'm doing this too. I'm trying to escape this theater. And this is the same reason we find like Joe Rogan's podcast so intriguing, because it allows us to play out our ideological fantasies without consequence. So the discomfort we feel isn't a call to action, but like a reinforcement of our role as like passive, entertained voters. So like just really consider Jubilee's lineup to debates as it's become like this release, a place where we can perform our grievances in full view of an audience. That's how people treat politics, but never risk actually confronting what lies behind those views. Like asking, why are the issues that people are fixating, the top 3 hot button issues, why are those the ones that they're fixating on? Why is that the case? Because those issues are not the thing that created your discontent, your political disillusionment. The political discontent and political disillusionment happened, but those have become the outlet for your identity to perform. But they are not the thing that's creating your discontent. I promise you that. I'll get into that in other videos. So we become consumed into seeking validation in our online spaces. Like I said, I do the same thing. We want validation. We don't want to fixate on how sad we are, how disillusioned we are, how much discontent we feel, how we feel like we don't have a future that we're working towards. And this is why we, the voter, become so invested in clips that go viral, in who won a debate, or which talking point resonates the most. It's your identity in the theater holding up the mask that you've chosen to wear, or we've chosen to wear. We can't seem to escape it. Anyway, I'll dive in more into this in other videos, but this is another episode of Unformulated, and thanks for listening, and time for you to get out of the labyrinth.